I wanted to share just a few highlights from the Metanoia Prison Ministry's San Joaquin Valley Appreciation Banquet. There were two reasons for this gathering on the beautiful campus of Trinity Community Church. The first was to express appreciation to folks who have cared about and invested their hearts and energies in prison ministry. And the second was to let people see each other face to face. Often I think folks who are involved don't get much chance to interact with others who are involved. Here were some of my opening words. The circumstance of prison isolation makes for what I might call an invisibility of souls for sort of the rest of the community. And in one sense, that's sort of obvious, right? There's going to be a default effect of removing persons and putting them behind fences and that kind of thing. But when whole communities of persons are out of view in that unique way, and in that incredibly intense way, it is easy to lose sight of the reality and humanity of souls that are on location there. I really, really cherish my own, just the providence of God to have it come about that I was able to cross that threshold of that invisibility barrier, cross the threshold and meet persons face to face, fellowship to fellowship, and that's now been 15 years of fellowship. And so I get the privilege, and I'll readily call it a privilege, of having connection with a community very few have connection with. I get to meet souls and people, and that means a lot. And it is the most happiest kind of providence that three men from the very first Bible study I was ever in, down at Substance Abuse Treatment Facility Corcoran, are here. We still know one another. Our friendship is deepening, even now. Glenn got us back together, and so that friendship is deepening, and we realize what the Lord's been doing. So you're going to hear from all three of these guys, and I think about it this way for us tonight. These guys are pretty tangible. They're not removed. These are returned citizens, and I think seeing faces, hearing voices can help us realize that there are human beings behind those walls. And anyway, I'm really, really delighted to have them. Again, it was Glenn that got us back together, so I'm going to ask him to speak first, but you'll hear from all three, from Glenn, from Matthew, and from Ray. So Glenn, would you be willing to come on up?
Sitting at the table, I really didn't know exactly what I was going to say. I mean, I could give you my testimony and tell you how I met Pastor McCracken and, the love I have for the guy. But I'd really like to tell you about the victory of God, what he's done for me in my life. Inside prison, I mean, it's a closed-off society. It's very violent, can be violent society. It's a very stressful society. And the truth is most of us deserve to be there. It took 10 years for God to wake me up, and when he did, I mean, it was incredible because I never seen it coming. I wasn't praying. I wasn't reading the Bible. I didn't have pastors coming to my door. Just as Jesus explained the spirit to Nicodemus in the Bible, you see the effect of the wind blowing through the trees, but you don't see the wind. You don't know where it came from, but you see the effects of it. And I was transformed in a second, but of course the sanctification is still ongoing. It is a forgotten society in there, and sometimes you look at it and you go, rightly so. It's when you're in there amongst it, you get very tired of the mentality, the ignorance, and the propensity of violence. And the bottom line is it's people without God. It's people without Jesus in their life, and he's the only person that can transform like that. And the only way that can happen is through people like you that work tirelessly to bring the gospel in there. Every single one of you, God bless you, because they need you in there. And I know it's probably at times you look at it and you think it's a thankless job, it's not a thankless job. I mean, they need God behind the walls. And I thank you personally.
Matthew is next. The thing I remember very especially about Matthew was that he led the prayer groups. And I tell you what, you could tell Matthew a prayer request, and 6 weeks later, he'd be saying, "So how is that going? Because I'm praying." And it was for real. Matthew, come and speak.
I was sentenced to 3 life sentences in 1997. I grew up, in a good neighborhood in Los Angeles, working class family. We had a vacation house. I was addicted to dirt bikes, speedboats, water skiing, adrenaline junkie. I got into drugs and just progressed, and I graduated to all the hard drugs. And about the time that I couldn't handle my drug addiction anymore, California came out with the 3 strikes law, and I was nonviolent, but under the 3 strikes law, I was doing burglaries to support my drug addiction, and in 3 years I picked up 5 burglaries, and they struck me out. My sentence in 98 was 85 to life, 3 25 to life sentences plus 10 years. In there, like Glenn said. Oh, Glenn, by the way, was my cellmate in 2012 and 2013, and I knew Ray when he first got saved. Powerful testimony there. When I got sentenced, I used my date to get out would have been 2079. I was like 37 years old, and I would have been, when I went to see the board, I would have been 121 years old. So can you imagine going to the board and, they say come back next year at 121 without a write-up and we might let you go, So anyways, I still used drugs for the first 2 years that I was in prison. And finally at Corcoran Sea Yard, you could feel spiritual oppression on that yard. And anyways, I was still using there. In 2000, I cried out to the Lord, just save me, I'm tired of this. And he did. And I haven't used drugs since then. And I got involved in Bible study correspondence, chapel in the yard. And I claim this verse, Matthew 6:33, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. The things added unto you isn't the Cadillac, isn't the speedboat, isn't the big house. It's love, joy, peace. And all I wanted to do was, I never thought I was going to get out. I had those 3 life sentences. I just wanted to live out the rest of my life with joy and peace. And those were the things that I wanted, And while I was doing that, some lady that I never met was assigned to be my appellate attorney. And while I was studying the word and everything, one day they sent me back to court. And they sent me back to the same judge that gave me those sentences. And when I saw the judge, he looked at me, and it had been a few years, he said, "You don't look the same." I said, "I'm not the same." He did something that was unprecedented, and he removed all 3 of the life sentences. He gave me a sentence of 27 years, and that was in 2000. That would have left my date at, it was at 218 with good time or whatever. So we still inside, when I went back in 2000, I was a rock star on the yard because I had 3 life sentences taken off of me, but still, I'm like, we call it a Buck Rogers date, light years away. It's 2000 and I'm getting out in 2018, But I kept into the chapel. I did have a prayer group for 13 years in there, and I was big on intercessory prayer. I had people, on the outside send me the missionaries of the churches, and I started like a little program called Adopt a Missionary. We're not going to pray for our packages, for our money to arrive, for our canteen, for a good celly. That was okay, but not selfish stuff. We're going to pray for other people. We're going to do intercessory prayer, and that's what we had in there. And then Pastor McCracken came, and he had the Bible study, and his Bible study was, the real Christians on the yard that were studying their Bibles were going to his Bible study. I can't go, even though I want to, but we're going to still have this prayer group and where we can go and do that. And it was an effective ministry. I waited out. It was the right thing to do, even though I wanted to go, but I knew him. Later, I transferred to another yard, and he was there, and I got to go to his Bible study at Pleasant Valley. I paroled in 2015, June 11th, Okay, I was just telling Steve that I used to stand out in front of Home Depot when I first got out. I paroled to a Christian that Glenn introduced me to, a Christian home. There are not Christian homes to parole to now. That is what I'm involved with now. I have a group that I run on Friday nights. It's called the Straight and Narrow, and it's for people that have paroled, and they go to this program that's there, and then they're part of our ministry. But it has to start in prison, you know, and it's so important that that they're exposed to some sound Bible teaching. Sound Bible teaching.
Amen.
You people provide a way for him to come in there, to reach out to us. I just really want to thank you so much for being here tonight.
And Ray, would you be willing? You're on, man. Yeah, actually, I think I've known Ray the longest, maybe.
I was sitting there reflecting on everything they were saying, and they probably said most of it already, but this is it's a blessing to be here tonight. I want to kind of reiterate what they were saying, like, you know, what you guys do is so important. I'll make this real short. I went in at 16. I had a life sentence. I deserved to be there. I was locked up like 18 years or so. I was caught up in all the madness that was in there. And it was then that the Lord touched my heart. It was in 2001. And it was then that I repented. I began to read the Word, and I began to know Christ on a very intimate level. And it was just a deep understanding of, you know what? God is more than what I can even comprehend, you know. And so it's even today, I'm still trying to understand just His grace, because it's like it's not for people like me. And so when in 2006, was it 2006 when you started coming to SADF? I remember listening to the pastor and just being encouraged. And I left in 2009. That's the last time I seen him. But the Lord has been faithful, and He's kept me. And it's because of people like all of you that however you support any ministry, you're helping, you're planting seeds. And I think of when the Lord says that one man plants, the next one waters, and the Lord gives the increase. And so all throughout my life, I remember people coming and talking to me about Jesus, but it never actually took root, you know. And I was a young man full of hatred and anger and blaming everybody for all my problems. And I was just so twisted in my thinking. I mean, everything that was good was bad, everything that was bad was good. And I'm pretty typical of people that are in there behind the walls. The only difference between me and them now is that I know Christ. And so, like now, because of the work that's being done through all of your guys' efforts, I mean, it's, you know, now I'm going back. I'm trying to go back into the prison myself. That was never my thought process when I was getting out. I was never thinking I want to go back into the prison. Because I haven't been able to get back in yet, I correspond and I get phone calls and stuff like that until I'm able to actually go in there. And, you know, a lot of my motivation, I mean, it's from what you guys are doing. So thank you. You know, just thank you guys for, you know, helping support the ministries of people that are lost in prison. And because of what you guys do, I'm able to do what I do. And the people that I help, by God's grace, they'll continue to do that too. So thank you guys. And we're all still serving the Lord, and we haven't returned back by God's grace, and we just continue to honor Him. Thank you.